Open the door, Elena. I know you're in there, and we have exactly 9 years of catching up to do, starting with this. The voice through my video doorbell was unmistakable, even after nearly a decade of absolute silence. It belonged to my mother, Lydia. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking down at a crisp, white legal pad in her manicured hands. I sat at my kitchen island, my coffee freezing halfway to my mouth. I am a senior forensic auditor, a woman who spends 40 hours a week tracking hidden assets, unmasking corporate fraud, and looking at cold, hard data. I don't panic. My heart doesn't race easily. But hearing that voice sent a chill straight down my spine. 9 years ago, my family made it entirely clear that I no longer existed to them. They blocked my number, locked me out of the family home, and told me to never return. Now, on a rainy Tuesday morning, she was standing on my porch in a designer coat I knew she couldn't afford, tapping her foot. I didn't open the door. Instead, I tapped the intercom button on my phone. "Lydia," I said, my voice deliberately devoid of emotion. "You have 30 seconds to leave my property before I call the police." She didn't flinch. Instead, she held the legal pad directly up to the camera lens. Written in her sharp, elegant cursive was a single figure at the bottom of the page. $925,000. "Call them," she whispered, smiling coldly. "But before they arrive, you might want to know that your brother Julian is facing 20 years in federal prison because of the company you built. And this list is the price for my silence." To understand why my mother was standing on my porch with a near $1 million demand, you have to understand the family dynamic I escaped. I am the eldest child. In my family, that didn't mean I was respected. It meant I was the designated sacrificial lamb. My younger brother, Julian, was the golden child. From the moment he was born, the sun rose and set purely for him. If Julian broke a window, I was blamed for not watching him. If Julian failed a class, my parents demanded to know why I hadn't tutored him properly. I learned very early that my only value in that house was what I could provide, and how much weight I could carry for Julian. When I graduated at the top of my class and secured a full scholarship to study accounting and finance, there was no celebration. No dinner, no cake. My mother simply looked at my acceptance letter and asked, "How is this going to help Julian get into college?" Julian, who spent his teens crashing cars and spending my parents' retirement money on designer clothes, didn't even graduate high school. Yet he was treated like royalty, while I worked 3 jobs during my university years just to afford textbooks and groceries. I learned to keep my head down, budget every single penny, and build a wall around my heart. I thought that if I became successful enough, independent enough, they would finally see me as a human being. I was incredibly naive back then. The breaking point happened 9 years ago, when I was 26. I had saved up $35,000 through sheer discipline and exhausting overtime hours. It was my down payment for a small 1-bedroom condo. I wanted a place that was mine, where nobody could threaten to throw me out. 2 weeks before the closing date, my father called me into the living room. It was a rare occurrence. Usually, they only called me when Julian needed his credit card bill paid. My mother was sitting on the sofa, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue, while Julian sat in the corner, staring at his phone with a smirk. My father didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't ask about my career. He simply sat down, pushed a piece of paper across the coffee table, and said, "We need your savings. All of it. Julian found a business partner for a luxury car rental startup, but he needs $35,000 for the initial deposit by Friday." I remember the feeling of the room spinning. I told them no. I told them that money was my future, my hard-earned savings. My mother's tears instantly vanished, replaced by a cold, venomous rage. "You selfish, ungrateful girl," she hissed. "We gave you life. We fed you. Your brother needs a start in life, and you're hoarding money like a thief." When I refused to back down, my father stood up, opened the front door, and threw my winter coat onto the lawn. "If you don't care about this family, you aren't part of it," he said. That night, I slept in my car. For 9 years, I built a completely new life from the ashes of that rejection. I bought my condo, climbed the corporate ladder, and eventually started my own boutique forensic accounting firm. I specialized in high-stakes corporate divorces and asset recovery. I became the person companies called when millions of dollars mysteriously vanished from their ledgers. I married a wonderful, supportive man named David, who understood my scars and never pushed me to reconcile with the people who caused them. I changed my phone number, deleted my old social media accounts, and completely erased myself from their world. I thought I was safe. I thought the distance and the time had finally sealed the wounds. But as I stared at the security monitor in my kitchen, watching my mother stand on my porch, I realized that greedy people never truly forget you. They just wait until they need something larger. I unlocked the door, keeping the security chain fastened. I looked through the gap at the woman who had raised me, and then abandoned me. "What do you want, Lydia?" I asked quietly. She pushed the white legal pad through the gap in the door. "This is an itemized breakdown of what you owe this family for your upbringing, adjusted for inflation, plus the cost of the damages your little firm has caused your brother," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. $925,000. You will wire it to my account by Friday, or I go to the press with the evidence that your firm is engaged in illegal wire fraud. I unlatched the chain and pulled the door open, my professional instincts immediately taking over. When you deal with fraudsters for a living, you learn never to show fear, because fear is the fuel they feed on. I took the legal pad from her hand and looked at the list. It was laughable. It included things like food and shelter, ages 0 to 18, emotional distress caused by rebellion, and then at the very bottom, a line item that caught my attention: loss of Julian's business revenue due to malicious audit. I looked up at her, my eyes narrowing. "Julian's business?" I asked. My mother crossed her arms, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. "Don't play dumb, Elena. Julian started a logistics and shipping company 3 years ago. It was doing wonderfully. He was finally building the life he deserved. And then last month, one of his main clients' parent companies hired your firm to audit their logistics expenses. You intentionally flagged his invoices as fraudulent just to destroy him. He lost his contract, his business is collapsing, and the federal prosecutors are breathing down his neck. You did this out of pure, childish revenge." Ist sehr daher, genuinely stunned. My firm handles dozens of corporate audits a month. My junior analysts do the initial screenings, and I only review the final reports under corporate code names to maintain objectivity. I had absolutely no idea Julian was even involved with any of our clients. "I don't review client vendor names personally during initial audits, Lydia," I said calmly, stepping back into my foyer. "If Julian's invoices were flagged, it's because Julian was stealing. My firm doesn't fabricate data." My mother stepped into my hallway without an invitation, slamming the front door behind her. "He didn't steal anything. He just adjusted the margins. It's how business is done. But because of your stupid, rigid report, the client filed a formal complaint with the authorities. They are investigating his entire operation. They're calling it wire fraud and grand larceny." She stepped closer to me, her breath smelling of expensive mints. "You are going to fix this. You are going to sign an affidavit stating that your firm made a mathematical error, that Julian's company is clean, and you are going to give us the money to pay off his immediate debts, so he doesn't get arrested. If you don't, I have a copy of your firm's internal server logs. Your little assistant, a very sweet girl named Chloe who needed money for her mother's medical bills, was more than happy to download them for me. If I release those logs to your corporate clients, it will look like you've been manipulating data for years. Your reputation will be ruined. Your business will die." The room went completely still. She thought she had trapped me. She thought she had found my breaking point. But she had made one fatal mistake. She had brought a knife to a gunfight with a forensic auditor. I looked at my mother for a long moment, noticing the desperate, trembling tension beneath her confident exterior. She wasn't just angry, she was terrified. Julian wasn't just facing a loss of business. He was facing actual prison time, and my parents had undoubtedly co-signed on his business loans, putting their own house and assets on the line. They were sinking, and they wanted to use me as their life jacket while holding a gun to my head. "Chloe," I said softly, reflecting on my administrative assistant who had suddenly resigned 2 weeks ago claiming she was moving out of state. "You paid Chloe to steal data from my office." My mother smirked, tapping her designer handbag. Let's just say everyone has a price, Elena. Yours is $925,000 and a signed retraction. I suggest you get your laptop. Instead of moving toward my office, I walked over to the kitchen island, picked up my phone, and opened my firm's encrypted cloud portal. As a forensic auditor, my entire network is protected by strict data loss prevention protocols. Every single download, every file access, and every external drive insertion is logged with a digital fingerprint. Lydia, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, did you know that under federal law, purchasing stolen corporate data and using it to extort a business owner is a Class B felony? And did you also know that my office servers contain dummy files specifically designed to track unauthorized data theft? My mother's smile faltered slightly, her eyes darting to my phone. You're bluffing, she said, though her voice lacked its previous venom. I have the files right here on a flash drive. They show your firm's proprietary algorithms and client lists. I tapped my screen, bringing up the security logs from the date Chloe resigned. I didn't just see Chloe's login. I saw that the files she downloaded weren't our actual client data. They were honeypot files, scrambled, encrypted blocks of useless data designed to trigger an automatic alert to our cybersecurity team and the digital forensics unit of the local police. The moment those files were accessed and moved to an external drive, a silent report was automatically filed. I'm not bluffing, I said, turning the screen toward her. Chloe didn't steal my client data, Lydia. She stole a tracking file that has been broadcasting its location, and the device ID it was copied to every time it connects to an internet network. It's currently pinging from a device registered to, let me check, Julian's home address. My mother's face turned completely pale. The elegant, commanding woman who had walked onto my porch suddenly looked incredibly small and fragile. You trapped her? She whispered. No, I replied, my voice steady and cold as ice. I protected my business. You and Julian trapped yourselves the moment you decided that extortion was easier than working for a living. I walked into my study, my mother following me like a ghost, her heels clicking frantically on the hardwood floor. Elena, wait, she pleaded, her voice cracking. You don't understand. Julian didn't mean to do anything wrong. The car rental business failed because his partner stole the money. He started the logistics company to pay back the debts from the first failure. He was desperate. Your father and I mortgaged our house to give him the startup capital. If Julian goes to jail, the bank will take our house. We'll be homeless. We're your parents, Elena. You can't do this to your own blood. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the official public records for Julian's logistics company, which I had quietly pulled the moment she mentioned his name. I didn't need to look at stolen logs. I had access to the public court filings from the parent company's lawsuit against him. I looked up at her, my eyes completely devoid of sympathy. He didn't adjust margins, Lydia. He created 12 fake subcontracting companies, billed his main client for shipping routes that didn't exist, and funneled $1.4 million into a private offshore account in the Cayman Islands. I can see the transaction trail right here in the public evidence exhibit from the civil suit. He wasn't trying to save your house. He was buying a luxury condo in Miami and a yacht while you and Dad were drowning in debt to support him. My mother sank into the armchair opposite my desk, her face completely hollow. The revelation that her beloved golden child had stolen millions and left his own parents to lose their home, while he lived a secret life of luxury in Miami, seemed to shatter something deep inside her. For decades, she had convinced herself that Julian was just a victim of bad luck. A sweet boy who just needed one more chance, one more financial injection. She had blinded herself to the monster she had created by shielding him from every single consequence. He told me he was using the money to pay off the bank, she whispered, staring at the floor. He told me he just needed this last bit of help from you to clear his name, and then he would buy us a retirement villa. I closed my laptop with a quiet, deliberate click. Julian has been lying to you your entire life, Mother. And the worst part is, you knew he was a liar, but you chose to believe him anyway because it was easier than admitting you threw away your relationship with your daughter for a thief. She looked up at me, tears finally spilling over her wrinkled cheeks. Elena, please. Forgive me. I was wrong. I was so wrong about him. Please help us. You have the money. You have the power. Just help your father and me save the house. We'll cut Julian off, I promise. Just don't let us lose everything. I picked up my desk phone and dialed a number I had memorized from the public court documents. The office of the federal prosecutor handling Julian's corporate fraud case. My mother watched me, her breath catching in her throat, her eyes wide with terror. What are you doing? She gasped. I'm doing my job as a citizen and a licensed auditor, I said as the call connected. Hello, this is Elena Vance, Senior Managing Director of Vance Forensic Analytics. I am calling regarding the fraud case against Julian Vance and his logistics firm. I have physical evidence of an extortion attempt carried out this morning by his mother, Lydia Vance, utilizing what she believed to be stolen corporate data. I also have the digital tracking logs linking the stolen files directly to Julian's primary residence. I will be couriering the full digital file and the physical legal pad with the handwritten extortion demands to your office within the hour. I hung up the phone and stood up, walking over to the front door and opening it wide. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the morning air crisp and clear. You have 10 seconds to leave my house, Lydia, I said softly. The prosecutors will likely have a warrant for your arrest and a search warrant for Julian's house by this afternoon. I suggest you go find a very good public defender. Because from what I saw in his financial records, Julian already spent your retirement money on his own legal defense fund 3 months ago.